So, take a look at this guy. This is Arthur Schopenhauer. And yeah, one look at this portrait tells you pretty much everything you need to know. He wasn't exactly the life of the party. In fact, he's one of history's most famous pessimists, a man who stared right into the abyss of human existence and didn't even blink.
See, his entire philosophy really boils down to this one deeply uncomfortable question. He thought the answer was a resounding yes. And in this explainer, we're going to break down exactly why he thought that, and maybe more importantly, what, if anything, we can do about it.
To really get where Schopenhauer is coming from with this super grim outlook, you've got to understand his life. It was, well, kind of filled with tragedy, failure, and conflict, right from a very young age.
A few key moments really stand out. First, when he was just a teenager, his father died in what was almost certainly a suicide, a trauma that haunted him forever. Then, he had a massive falling out with his own mother, and they never spoke again. And to top it off, his professional life was a disaster. He tried to become a professor and scheduled his lecture at the exact same time as the philosophical superstar of the day, Hegel. Almost no one showed up. So you see, his pessimism wasn't just some abstract idea. It was forged in real, personal pain.
And if you want a real window into his personal struggles, just listen to this. This is a line from a letter from his own mother, Johanna. Yeah, their relationship was so toxic that they just completely cut each other off, for good. You know, these two portraits, side by side, they tell a story all on their own. On the left, you see him as a young man, almost hopeful, romantic even. But on the right, that's the Schopenhauer we all think of. Stern, weathered, completely unyielding. You can practically see the weight of his own philosophy etched right there on his face.
Okay, so if life is suffering, what's causing it all? Schopenhauer had a one-word answer for the engine that drives literally everything in existence, and it's the absolute core of his whole system. He called it the will.
Now, when Schopenhauer says the will, he's not talking about your conscious choice like I will have coffee. No, for him, it's this fundamental cosmic force, a mindless, insatiable hunger that exists in every single thing. A plant strives for the sun, a tiger strives to hunt, and we strive for money, for love, for status. It's just this endless, irrational craving that can never, ever be satisfied.
And that right there is the trap. The will guarantees we are never satisfied. You want something, right? You suffer until you get it. Then you finally get it, and you feel this little flicker of satisfaction, which is immediately replaced by boredom. And then what? A brand new desire pops up, and the whole miserable cycle just starts all over again.
All right, let's switch gears to the other pillar of his philosophy. If this blind, striving will is the true reality, then what is this world that we see and touch every day? Schopenhauer's answer is pretty mind-bending. He says it's basically an illusion.
He called it the representation, and the best way to think about it is like this. Your mind is a projector. The outside world is just the raw film, but your mind is what gives it structure, using these built-in lenses of space, time, and cause and effect. So the world you see isn't objective reality. It's a mental movie that you are both producing and starring in, 24/7. This idea is so central to his thinking that it is the very first sentence of his masterpiece, "The world is my representation." He puts it right there, up front. The world you know only exists as it appears to you, as an idea in your head.
So here's the bottom line. You've got this deep split. On one side, there's the will, the hidden, chaotic, unified force that is true reality. And on the other side, there's the representation, the orderly, fragmented world of individual things that our minds build for us. The crazy part is we live our whole lives in the representation, but we are constantly being puppeted by the will.
I know this all sounds incredibly bleak, right? We're trapped in an illusion, driven by a force of endless, painful desire. But Schopenhauer didn't just diagnose the disease. He actually offered a couple of prescriptions for how to find some relief.
He laid out two basic paths. The first one is like a temporary escape hatch, losing yourself in art. He called it aesthetic contemplation. The second path, well, that's the more permanent, hardcore solution, aesthetic denial, which is a total rejection of all the will's desires.
So let's talk about that first path. Think about a time when you were completely absorbed by a work of art, a painting, a sculpture. You forget yourself, right? You're not thinking about your to-do list, your worries, your ego. For just a brief moment, you become what he called a pure, will-less subject. And in that moment, you are totally free from suffering. And for him, music was on a whole other level. It was the highest of all the arts.
Why? Because while painting and sculpture show you kind of shadows of the will, music, he said, is a direct copy of the will itself. It expresses all that chaos and striving and passion without needing any words or images at all. It's the purest expression.
So let's get to his legacy. Because the really wild part of this story is how this philosopher, who was a complete and utter failure in his own lifetime, ended up changing the entire course of Western thought.
And I'm not exaggerating. When his magnum opus was first published back in 1818, it completely and totally flopped. It sold almost no copies. For decades, Schopenhauer was just this obscure guy, living in the shadow of his arch-rival, Hegel.
But after he died, everything changed. His ideas about irrational drives, about the unconscious, it was like he laid the groundwork for thinkers like Nietzsche and Freud. His philosophy echoed through the novels of Tolstoy and Proust, and even physicists like Einstein and Schrödinger found inspiration in his work. The guy was everywhere.
You can see his reach perfectly in this single quote, which was famously a favorite of Albert Einstein's. Think about it. A man can do as he will, but not will as he will. It perfectly captures the idea that while we feel free to act on our desires, we are absolutely not free to choose the desires themselves. Those just bubble up from the deep, dark depths of the will.
So we're left with this question. Was Schopenhauer just a brilliant but miserable man who projected his own unhappiness onto the entire universe? Or was he a courageous realist who was brave enough to see the truth of the human condition and then offer us a way to endure it? I'll let you be the judge of that.